BARK Radio.
What's good, everybody? It's Robo from Allbark back with another video, and today we're my college football conference championship picks. It's officially the postseason, the final week before the college football playoffs get revealed, as well as all the other bowl matchups. I will be doing pick videos for all of those matchups again, but before we get into this week's picks, let's go ahead and recap week 14 and the regular season results on the channel. We wrapped up the regular season with one final green week with week 14, going 51-16 picking winners and a 34-32-1 record picking spreads. That takes us into postseason play with almost 60 wins above 500 against the spread, and our third year in a row in the green. I'll still be picking every bowl game and playoff game, but a lot more variance comes with those with last-second opt-outs and freshmen getting in the rotation. That's for another video next week. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into the conference title games, starting on Friday night. Our first conference title game is the Conference USA in Jacksonville, Alabama, where the Jacksonville State Gamecocks host the Kennesaw State Owls. We actually got this exact matchup in Jacksonville a few weeks ago. It was a great game, but Jacksonville State took it by 9, 35-26. Beating a team twice in 1 year can be very hard though, so looking at this game from a new perspective, I don't love this matchup for either defense. Kennesaw State ranks worst defensively, but they're only about 15 yards apart on the year. Kennesaw struggles to stop the run, which is Jacksonville State's bread and butter, and Jacksonville State struggles to stop the pass while also being beaten on the ground a bit. And Kennesaw State is more balanced offense with an athletic quarterback in Amari Odom. So this game's a real toss-up to me. Kennesaw State has been an incredible story this year, making that year 2 jump from the bottom of the conference to the conference title game. But I just had to lean towards Cam Cook and Jacksonville State going back-to-back at home. When you can pound the rock at will and control the game clock in your own building, I think it's a very big advantage. And this team just found a way to win at home all season long, regardless of the opponent advantages they've had to be up against. So I'm rolling with Jacksonville State in this game, 30-27. Next up is the Sun Belt. James Madison will host Troy with a real shot at a potential playoff spot. A JMU win and a Duke win, and they are likely in the playoff. The top 5 conference champions get an auto bid in the top 12, so if Duke were to win the ACC with 5 losses, this JMU team would definitely be ranked ahead of them. From a matchup standpoint, James Madison has been a far superior team this season. In recent games against the Sun Belt, they blew out App State and Coastal Carolina by 50 each, and their lone loss came at the hands of Louisville in week 2. They did survive a recent scare against Washington State a couple weeks ago though, and have had a few closer games in conference. And this Troy matchup might be a little bit more interesting than the last couple. Goose Crowder's been hot lately, throwing over 600 yards and 7 touchdowns in his last 2, and this Troy defense ranks 3rd in the conference and has been pretty stout against the pass. JMU is probably going to dominate this game on the ground though. They've got a good stable of backs and a defense that can just completely shut down Troy here. It's number 1 in the Sun Belt in basically every metric. But I think that run-heavy game plan and slower game pace could lead to less points here than they've been putting up lately. And over 3 touchdowns is a ton for a conference title game. But it's still going to be JMU here for me by 3 scores, 37-17. North Texas and Tulane face off for the American Conference Championship in a playoff play-in game, as the winner here is almost guaranteed Group of 5 playoff spot. And even in a chaos scenario where the ACC is left out, they move up to number 11 instead of 12. So it's a win and in for both teams here. Tulane's getting to host this game, which is definitely a huge advantage, but this North Texas offense is going to be a massive challenge to try and slow down. The offense has lit teams up both at home and on the road this season. Their worst performance is being 33 points at Western Michigan way back in week 2, and against a similar defense numbers-wise in South Florida earlier this year, they still put up 36. The North Texas defense did give up 63 to South Florida though, and have allowed 24 plus to UAB, Rice, and Temple in the last 3 weeks. But the ridiculous pace of their offense has been putting the defense on the field for a majority of those games. And this matchup should be much more of a challenge, which allows for a bit of more rest for that defense. This game comes down to whichever team is better defensively. Tulane's struggling secondary versus an elite pass offense with a monster weapon in Caleb Hawkins in the backfield to complement it. Or North Texas' awful run defense against a team who's great in the trenches to take advantage of that and move the ball at will. To me, I think North Texas' offense is the best unit in this game by a lot. And that's why I lean towards them taking this one. I'm going to go 38-31 North Texas. Our last conference title game on Friday night is the Mountain West Championship as Boise State once again hosts UNLV. We saw this matchup already this season in Boise, and a healthier Boise team absolutely crushed UNLV 56-31 behind a massive second half defensive performance. That doesn't necessarily mean it'll repeat though. It was a very close first half, and both teams have changed a lot since then. And on top of that, it looks like it could be raining or snowing throughout this game, which could slow it down a bit. As for a matchup standpoint, Maddox Madsen is making his return for Boise State at quarterback, which could be huge, but at the same time, he may be rusty coming off of an injury. The Boise State defense on the other end is extremely good though, and can take the ball away from any offense really, And on the other side of this game, the UNLV defense Madsen is going up against has been pretty bad this season. But how much do we trust Maddox Madsen in his first game back as starter if they're able to at least slow down the rushing attack in this game, especially when this offense wasn't really blowing us away through the air in the first place? I do think UNLV has some talent there that could get some stops in this game with some help from the weather. But Madsen hasn't lost a conference game in 2 years as a starting quarterback. It's Boise's final Mountain West title game before they head off to the Pac-12 next year. At home, on the blue turf, and UNLV's defense is the worst unit in the matchup. I lean Boise taking this one at home, 30-24. First up on the Saturday slate is a huge one for playoff implications, Texas Tech and BYU in the Big 12 title from Arlington. For BYU, it's win and you're in, loss and you are likely out. And for Texas Tech, a win earns a first round bye and a loss may remove that luxury. This is another repeat matchup. BYU played Texas Tech on the road this season in Lubbock and lost 29-7. Not finding any offense whatsoever and just having to try and survive with their defense in that game. This one could definitely end up a little closer than that though. The neutral aspect of this game could be big, and BYU obviously is playing for their season here is massive. They probably come in with a different game plan for this defense that could change that outcome. But regardless of what they do, I think this Texas Tech team is phenomenal and a legitimate title contender deserving of a first round bye. This defense is just incredible, up there with Ohio State and Oklahoma for best in the country. You absolutely cannot run the football on them, and on the other end, this offense just attacks you in any way they want. Almost 500 yards per game they put up this season with a pretty even split. As good as BYU has looked since that game last month, I just cannot get past this Red Raiders defense looking so dominant in the last matchup. And seeing that advantage come out to play again, I absolutely see more fight coming from BYU offense here, scoring at least a few times in this game. But when it comes down to picking a winner, I got to roll Texas Tech. I'm going to take them by 10, 31-21. Also kicking off at noon Saturday is the MAC championship game from Ford Field in Detroit between Miami, Ohio and Western Michigan. We got this matchup in Miami, Ohio about a month ago, and the Red Hawks took it 26-17. This is a neutral site though, and with much more on the line, so we could be in for a different result this time. And looking back at this matchup, it should be a great one. Western Michigan and Miami, Ohio have the number 2 and 3 defenses in the conference statistically, and have done a great job of limiting opponents on the ground this season. Any result on the scoreboard as well. Western's got a slightly better pass defense this season, but hasn't really been challenged too much since early on in the season with a pretty run-heavy schedule in that back half. And looking at the offenses, Western really relies on that run game behind their offensive line and running quarterback, whereas Miami, Ohio has thrown with a little bit more consistency this season. I originally thought that would change with Daquan Finn quitting on the team a few weeks ago, but since starting freshman Tommy Gutkowski, the numbers haven't seen too much of a drop-off at all. The opponents being Buffalo and Ball State helped a lot though, and his completion percentage is only 50% still. So I'm not sure I trust their pass game to do too much here in a game this big. This is a complete toss-up to me that comes down to turnover margin in my opinion, and I just think I can trust Western's run game slightly more than a young quarterback in his biggest start and first against a non-bottom feeder defense. Give me Western 24-20. Next is the SEC title game from Atlanta between, of course, Georgia and Alabama. Georgia is likely getting a bye regardless of the result, and Alabama should be in the playoff regardless as well. But they probably can't afford to get blown out here still, and honestly, that shouldn't really be happening anyways. Alabama is 100% one of the top 10 teams in the country to me, despite their last couple of performances, and they even beat this Georgia team in Athens early on in the season as well. With that said, this Georgia offense has looked so much better than they did in Week 4 throughout the second half of the season, up until last week against Georgia Tech. But the defense was phenomenal in that game, as they were in many others, and at the same time, Alabama's had some duds as well, nearly falling in the Iron Bowl last week and losing to Oklahoma at home 2 weeks ago. Alabama has really owned Georgia for a while, but I really think this Georgia team is playing better football to end the year. They seem to have grown a lot more offensively since then, especially Gunnar Stockton, who in my mind has been playing near a Heisman level for the Bulldogs. I really trust this defense to make life tougher on Ty Simpson, shut down the Alabama run game, and prove that beating the same team twice at this level is so tough to do. So I'm going to go with my gut and trust who I think has just been a better team as of late and take Georgia close, 28-24. Saturday night, we've got number 1 against number 2 for the Big Ten title. Ohio State and Indiana going at it. Both of these teams are locked for a bye, so just some hardware on the line for both teams, and not many priors or similar head-to-heads besides Penn State. And even that matchup is a weird one to compare with one home, one away, and just a different vibe for each game. So I'll break this one down from a statistics standpoint as well as just an eye test. I was really impressed with Indiana this season. Coming in, I was pretty high on Fernando Mendoza, but definitely not this high. And I still really like this Indiana team with all the returning stars, but figured they'd drop the Oregon game as well as Penn State. Curt Cignetti has built a monster with this roster, and it absolutely can compete with the best of the best in any venue. But there is absolutely no question this Ohio State team is a different animal than anyone that they've seen. Oregon was great, but this is one of the best defenses in the history of college football statistically, and a team that has 4 of the top 10 players in America on it, and even more if you expand it to 20 or 30. What Matt Patricia has done with this defensive scheme is incredible, and we obviously saw a healthy enough Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate last week in Ann Arbor to expect both to be good to perform against Indiana this week. I think the Buckeyes just have an advantage on both sides of the ball over every team in the country this season, and trust them to get stops in the second half if they really need them. I think Indiana does compete, but Ohio State gets it done as just a better football team, 27-20. The last conference title matchup is a huge one, not only for the teams involved, but for the conference. It's the ACC title between Duke and Virginia. It's win and in for Virginia, but not for Duke, as if they win the ACC, it's almost guaranteed to get left out, as this Duke team has 5 losses and would just not be deserving of a higher ranking than James Madison or the American winner. It would cause a lot of chaos too with people upset over 2 representatives of the group of 5 getting in over the likes of BYU, Miami, Vanderbilt, or potentially even Notre Dame. So this is a massive game for the playoff outlook both this season and the future. This is another matchup we've already seen this season as well. Virginia just blew Duke out in Durham 3 weeks ago, 34-17. It was Chandler Morris's first game back from an injury, and he cooked this Duke defense. He did throw 2 picks, but 1 in garbage time, up 21 points, and the lack of offense out of Duke in that matchup was really telling. This Virginia defense has been really good this season. It's 3rd in the ACC overall and pretty solid against both the run and the pass. Duke has given up an extra 100 yards per game and 10 points per game more than Virginia this season, whereas the offenses are pretty similar from a scoring and yardage standpoint, just in different ways, as Duke is definitely more pass heavy, and Virginia can really run the football. To me, nothing was shocking me in the ACC anymore this season, but I think Virginia has a significant defensive advantage and proved that just 3 weeks ago. They've also got to be motivated to land a playoff spot as well, where Duke just does not have that. So I'm picking Virginia here to get it done and clean up the mess for the ACC to clinch a playoff berth, 31-24. That's it for my conference championship picks. Let me know your thoughts on any of these games down below in the comments. As always, thanks for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
BARK Radio.